theory in a nutshell, we're going to talk about musical forms in this one. Binary, rounded binary, and ternary. You need to know these forms if you were doing, for example, level 9 RCM, harmony, and lots of other harmonies too. Harmony courses. Okay, so what is binary form? Binary form is simply A repeated, B repeated. A repeated, B repeated. For example, lots of, it was widely used in the Baroque era, like, you know, the minuet in G, dum, da 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 dum, bum, bum. That one which used to be attributed to Bach, which really was written by Petzold, Christian Petzold. There's a whole story behind that, but anyway, very well-known minuet. It is A repeated, B repeated, and it is called binary form. Okay, the A and the B can be exactly the same length, like 16 bars and 16 bars. That's called symmetrical binary. Or often the B section might be longer than the A section. Usually it's the B section is longer. That would be asymmetrical binary. Okay, like maybe that A is 8 bars and B is 16 bars. But it's still binary form. A repeated, B repeated, done. Now, we get into rounded binary form, and this is where people get a little confused. A is repeated, but within the B section, which is also repeated, there is a part of A. Okay, not usually all of A. Usually it's like, let's say A is 8 bars long. This A1, that's why there's a 1 there, might be about 4 bars. Right? But it'll definitely end, well, not definitely, but it'll often end in a different cadence. So it won't be necessarily be exactly the same notes, but it'll be mostly the same notes. Okay, so A is repeated. The B part has some of the A section, a chunk of the A section, not just 1 or 2 notes, in the B section that is repeated with the B part. Okay, the B section is almost is longer than the A section, because it contains some of that A section. Okay, now the rounded binary was very popular form in the classical era. And for example, I gave you examples, so you can always look them up if you want to hear them. Mozart Piano Sonata in D, K284. The third movement of the theme and all but one of the variations are in rounded binary form. Okay, so it's very important to remember that the A part is repeated within the B repetition. It's not an A standalone. Okay, now ternary form is ABA, and usually the B section is contrasting. It might be in a different key, and let's say the A section is G major. Perhaps you're in the relative minor for the B section, you go back to G major for the A section, because the A section is exactly the same as that one. It's not a part, it's not whatever, it's exactly the same. So the A section is repeated in its entirety, not as part of the B section. Now, often the composer would write da capo al fine, like this, da capo al fine, at the end of the B section, which means you go back to the A and play to the fine. Okay, sometimes it would say senza replica, you wouldn't repeat, and repeats in here, because sometimes there'd be repeats within the A and B section. We'll talk about that in a minute, but not always. A, B, A. Okay? Now, if you have a da capo, it might not even have al fine. Da capo means to back to the head, to the start of the piece. Might not even say al fine, you're just supposed to know that where the fine is where you stop. So it's still A, B, A. Okay? Full A section, full B section, full A section. A is not combined with B and repeated. It's a full A section. That's ternary form. Now, the one that I think is most interesting, well, not most interesting, is a compound ternary. And sometimes it's just called ternary form. But it's a compound ternary form, because the A section themselves is in binary form. The B section itself is in binary form. Okay, this was used a lot in the third movements and symphonies, like the minuet or scherzo and trios, Mozart, Beethoven, Haydn, as well as many other applications from the Baroque era onwards. Lots and lots of things are in compound ternary. So that means your A section has binary within it, A repeated, B repeated. Full A section. Full B section, again contrasting. A repeated, B repeated within the B section. Not the same as the A and B. I could have used C and D, but that confuses people too. So trying to keep as less confusing as possible. So within the B section, which is contrasting, A repeated within there, B repeated within there of the B section. And then this is an exact repetition of the A. Back again, exactly the same thing. So it's A, B, A in the grand scale of it, right? Ternary, but within each section, it's binary. And that's called compound ternary. I hope this helped.